appreciate all you guys coming on out. To give you guys a little bit of background about me and where I kind of come from and how I got to Stout real quick. I don't know, a lot of you may know Rod Carey down at NIU. I was a graduate assistant down there at NIU for him. I played at NIU, I was a fullback down there. I'm not an offensive lineman, I understand that, but I was a fullback, so I worked a lot with the offensive line, worked a lot with Coach Carey down there at NIU. Came up to Stout, and now I'm the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. We actually have one of our guys sitting in the crowd today, so he's actually from Onalaska High School, Cody Marcourt, right over here, so I'm going to have him come up and do some demonstrating every once in a while for us. So this is going to be open. If you guys want to ask questions throughout while I'm going here, feel free to just shout them out. Any questions before I start at all? No? Okay. So going to get into a little bit of offensive line drills, and then I got one screen that was pretty successful for us this past year, so we're going to go over that as well. So board progression. So we do this pretty much almost every day. A lot of, from what I believe and from what I've learned, offensive line play is a lot of repetition, doing it over and over and over and again. So this drill here, down at the bottom, first rep, you fire into the finish. You got guys, you can do them straight ahead if you want to work a base step. I teach 3 different steps. I teach a base step, which is straight ahead, just short 6-inch step, get our foot in the ground. And I teach a cut step as well. A cut step, nose over my toe, getting a good base. So that's a cut step, and then obviously then an open reach step, opening up the hip, opening up the toe. When we throw our hand over, that opens up our hip a little bit more. But board progression, working more of our zone steps. So we fire to fit, land our hands on the pad, working striking with our hands. Short, first step, striking the bag with our hands, and then the next progression of that is 2-step and pop. So I'm down in the stance here, 2-step, really working getting that second step in the ground. That's the biggest, most important thing, right, Cody?
Yes, sir.
Getting that second step in the ground, because you don't want that second step to be too long or too short. That's what some of the things that I preach about the first 2 steps of the zone progression. And then once we get through those 2, you fire to fit and finish. So you're driving through the board just like you would if you were man blocking on the zone play. So we got some clips here coming up. So the defenders are holding the bag here. 2 steps right here. 72. Corey Pears use a starting right guard for us. His second step here now is going to be a little bit too big. I want him to be able to regain his steps, regain his base. Right here, he's overstepping on his second step. That's something I would tell him as we're looking at this drill on the field. So that's Cody right there in the center for him. Tall drink of water right there, standing behind the guys. But here, fire to fit and drive now, working to finish at the end. And then we also do it, watch this guy here, we also do it under the chutes, work on the flexibility, work on our pad level. A lot of our guys tend to end up rising out of their stance. If I feel like we're playing really high during practice, the next day we're going to live under the chute. We'll do chute walks, we'll do all that type of stuff under the chute. We'll live under there, make sure we're working on our knee bend, working on driving through our blocks with low pad level. So here, I work with the tight ends as well, so you'll see some tight ends mixed in here as well. But offensive line, tight ends, we all work together. So 2 steps, and then here, just driving, working on getting our feet in the ground, working on popping our head out. Once we get past the chute, working on bringing our hips through. Want to make sure that we're not leaning. This Logan Stoa, he's another tackle for us. He's doing a little bit too much leaning here, a little bit too much on his toes. Definitely want to have our feet on the insteps, pounding the ground, making sure we're getting good cleats in the ground. Then another progression here. So once you go through all the progression of the first step, the 2-step and the pop, the fire to fit and finish, then we go to linebackers as well. Just so we work on keeping the base. One thing that I know our guys, especially freshmen coming in, struggle with is when they're climbing up the backers, they're a little bit out of control. So when they're climbing up, they have a narrow base. They really want to run at the guy as a linebacker. This is one drill that we do to make sure that our guys are under control, make sure our guys are working on their hand placement, keeping their elbows tight, they're not flying away. So that's one of the things that, from doing it for past couple of years, we really work on overemphasizing our hands, we're overemphasizing our elbows, keeping them tight, and making sure that we're striking through the chest. We don't want guys striking out here like this. Our center, Dave Karonkowitz, he did a lot of this. It was just a habit. So he was a fifth-year guy, played 5 years for us, but he never got in the habit of striking through here. He always caught everything with his chest. Even though he did all the drills correctly, one of the things that he struggled with a lot was keeping the hands and striking through the chest whenever he got into the second level. You'll see that a little bit later when I have some game clips here. And here's Cody at the, right over here. So you can critique his footwork here, his elbows, hand placement, all that stuff. So Cody's going to be a junior for us next year. Started all the games this past year for us, so he's going to be a good player for us. But we just go rapid fire. This is a tight end over here. He does a pretty good job of it, getting his feet in the ground, making sure we have good ground contact. So some game clips here, kind of how a lot of the stuff that I do in my room is all the drills that we do have something to do with all the plays that we run during the game. And I want to make sure that we're doing our drill carryover into the game. So this is something that in the off season we'll watch and we'll be, okay, for me at least, are we doing what I'm teaching in drills? Because if it's not, we got to change the drills. I'm always open for different ideas, always open for different suggestions. But if we're not carrying over what we're doing in drills, the drill is pointless for me. We got to make sure that we're doing our zone steps here. We're working on driving the guy off the ball right here. Pretty good look here by Kaniala Lodi, Wisconsin native. Just working on keeping our feet, keeping our base. A lot of our guys, when you get into practice, they really get a narrow base. Those boards really help because if they step on the board, they're going to roll their ankle. That's something that I try to use those every day just so they get in the habit of keeping that base, keeping that good power position. Here, goal tackles. Just a straight zone board here. Just both of them are technically man blocking on this play. Really working our inside hand, inside presence, really working that inside point of aim, here number point of aim. Then driving them out. Cody could play a little bit lower here, couldn't you, Cody? A little bit more knee bend. Hand placement, not terrible, but working to drive that guy off the ball, off the line of scrimmage with our hands inside. And here's, I believe this is the last clip here. And then here, this is our linebacker, this is the play, this is our center, Dave Karonkowitz. This is him, you'll see his hands. He catches everything right there. That's not, like, if I was in film with him the next day, and I'd be like, hey, Dave, you got to really work on striking through his chest. Because here, you want to strike through his chest. He gives him his chest, but he's got no pop. He ends up catching it. That's not what we're looking for. We want him to strike through his chest, use his hands, be able to control him, and drive him out of there to create a bigger hole for us. But he does a good, decent enough job. He soaks him up. He does a decent job with his feet, keeping him base the whole time. Just like to see him be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more physical at the point of attack with his hands. Okay, downs and zones. Cody, you want to stand up here for me real quick? So downs and zones. This is something I think is pretty, I like this drill a lot. So first one, we just do downs and zones. So the way I teach down blocks, the way I teach zone blocks is pretty similar. So first, we're going to do zone straight. So if I do zone straight, face down, Cody. So if I do zone straight, we're going to do zones to the right, zones to the left. First, for here, we're working on our hat placement, working on our hand placement, everything that we just did with zone boards, but now we're going to incorporate a slant, and then we're going to incorporate a slant, and then you're married up on the block. So what I call married is just man on the block. So here, if you take, for what we're going to do, is just going to take zone steps to the right. Cody, go ahead. So zone straight, you're going to go zone right, go ahead. Just working on getting our hand placement, working on getting our feet in the ground, working on our point of aim with our hat and our hands. Okay, and then the next one, zone straight, or zone slant post. Really working on stepping with our right foot to the right. The second step has to be vertical up through it. One of the things that I've seen throughout doing it and throughout working with these guys is if you stay on track with our zone steps and the guy slants across your face, there's no way that you're going to be able to recover and be able to work directly up through them. A lot of our zone combos are double team vertical push combos. So you're stepping vertical through it, hand on water.
On the hip.
Hand on the hip. So one of the things that I like to have our guys is punch to the hip. So if you aim small, hopefully you hit small. Aim the hip. If you control his hip, you're going to control where the defender's going. For me, I feel like if you just punch his shoulder, that's not very much contact on the body. He can kind of brush that off. But if you're hand on the hip, if you punch his hip's going to open. Wherever his hips go is where his body's going to go. So I feel like punching his hand on his hip is really kind of important. So we're going to take our zone steps to the right, working our vertical step up through. Go ahead. Working up through, we want to make sure we're driving that guy up, creating more of a whole play side. Okay. Thanks, Cody.
Yep.
So here, just a pretty good, quick progression here. So I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be down the line. I have everybody paired up. I'm walking down the line, whistle, watching their steps, whistle, whistle. And then it's a quick way of getting all of our guys reps. Just working on hat and hands, working on your number, point of aim. Repetition, again, just repetition. I know it's not on the boards, it's a different drill. Very similar though, working on our hat and our hands. Here, Reggie, Kuyak, down the road, Blair Taylor. He's a little slow, He's a little slow with his hands here. See how his hands are low? I like to have quick from ground to chest contact. I like to have this defender bend down a little bit more. He's a little high, a little lazy right there. But I like to have him give a big chest like he would be a defender down on the line of scrimmage. So this is just zone straight, working on our zone path, just like you saw in those previous plays. Then here, kind of hard to tell, spring ball, no pads, kind of sucks not being able to hit anybody. So this is a drill that we do a lot in spring ball, working vertical on our second step, working on getting that second step vertical through it. So kind of hard to see there, but that's what we're doing there is a zone slant post is how I consider it. And then zone slant Mary, working on stepping here, getting vertical on the second step, being able to control the defender so we can't cross face, so we own that gap still, driving vertical outfield. Just a straight down block, very similar to our zone blocks, very similar forward. Just does a nice job stepping down, does a really nice job getting his feet in the ground. Something what I'm always looking for is having quick contact, getting those short, powerful steps in the ground. Here, this is a tight end. Like I said, I work a little bit with our tight ends. I want to make sure they are doing the same stuff that the O-line is doing. So we try and communicate the same language to those guys. He does a decent job here of taking a good aiming point, here number point of aim. His footwork's a little jacked up, but he does a nice job driving out of there. Physical. I like that his head is inside, his hands are in tight. That's one thing that we're looking for. So that's good drill carryover for him as well. Then lunch line. So I got this name from Rod Carey as well. So why I call it lunch line is because this guy goes into this position, this guy goes to this position, he goes here. So it's basically just a big long line that keeps revolving around. So we're working all of our double team combos, working on getting reps quickly, working on our double team combos. So we're working different footwork, hand placement, and all that stuff. Here, I like to see our guys working the hand on the hip, get a little bit physical, punch through the hip. Here, he gets his shoulders turned a little bit too much. I'd like to have him be more vertical through it, more square. For our double teams, for these guys, I don't mind if they do a timing step. I've done a little bit, I've done both. So a timing step, pick up, drive through the inside foot. But if a guy feels more comfortable doing the inside step here, through it first, and then getting the step in the ground, I don't mind either way. But I have done timing step. You can see both of them here in this picture. Our catcher does a little bit of timing step, a little bit slower than he does the near foot, near number first step. So I don't mind either of those. I've taught both of them. But it's just a good way of working different double team combos. Here, Logan Stowe, I'd like to see his hat inside. He's working on seeing double team combo to our linebacker. I'd like to have him be what I consider a post and a driver. on every double team block. So the post is the guy that has one hand in, hand on the hip. The driver is the one that's really driving the guy, really physical out of the block. So a lot of our double team combos, we always have a post and we always have a driver. So here, he's going to be our driver, he's our post, he's looking for any kind of run through in his gap. Here, this is a good drill. This is lunch line at its finest here. This is a really good rep. I was watching our plays, looking for clips. This is something I saw. I was like, wow, that fits the drill perfectly. So here, just double team combos, working up to the second level on our zone combos. Does a nice job, opens that gap wide open. Guy slants in, here on the right. Guard does a decent job. I like to see him be a little more aggressive, a little more physical through it. But does a decent job climbing up to the backer, gives us a chance to get a couple more yards. Then on the left side here, they do a nice job walling that guy off, climbing to that backer as well. Any questions on any of this stuff so far? If I need to slow down, let me know. Here, just again, working on our double team combos, having them slant and get vertical through it. So with that, I'll work having a guy here, and then I'll slant him, and then this guy now becomes the driver, and then this guy becomes the post, or he stays in this gap, now he's the post and he's the driver. Or I'll have him slant out, he's the driver, and now he climbs up to the backer. So I'll slant him. Once I feel like they got the basics down of the footwork, of making sure that they're in the right gaps and they're working the right footwork, I'll throw in some slants in there that will hopefully lead to this in the game where they learn how to adjust off of, they see the guy slant, they learn to climb right away. Muscle memory through drill work. So our left guard does a really nice job here. Feels the guy slant away, climb up to that backer. Three-man combos. This is something that we do. We do four-man combos as well. Just working a lot of our combo schemes is what this is. So zone combos, we can work our gap combos. We do all that different types of blocking. So here, 3 guys, 3 defenders usually. Spring ball, there's going to be some clips in here. We didn't have enough guys for spring practice to have 3 guys on defense, so we only ended up having 2. It's 2 down guys, but we can work all of our zone combos. Just if you want to have a shade here, you got, Cody, come on up real quick for me, please, play. So you have a shade here, guard, tackle, or you can have a 3 technique, so be here for me. So if I'm the center, you got a guard here. The guard now is working to be the post, hand on the hip. Center is working the driver, near foot, near number, and then working to get our head across them, working on driving our guys. So a lot of the stuff that we do has a lot of repetition of getting all of our zone combos, all of our gap combos done. Thanks, Corey. So I like to throw different twists in there here. We only have 2 guys on defense. I'd like to have another guy be a 5 technique here. So if it's a shade and a 5, a lot of the guys that we play against really squeeze the hip of our tackles. So with that, Cody, what do we have to do? What do we have to make sure if we have a D end squeeze?
You don't get washed down, so I don't know, just throw his shoulder and stuff so he doesn't wash me down.
Yep, so you got to lean into him. I teach our guys, if he's pressuring you, you got to fight pressure with pressure. If he's leaning into you, trying to push you down, trying to squeeze that, because we do a decent amount of zone read, you got to lean into him, you got to get thick through it, stay vertical, so it opens up that B gap on the backside. Here, Cody, I think you could have climbed a little bit sooner, could have been a little bit thicker. That's why having a D end here really helps this drill, because you can really get his hands on him, really wash him down, and really be physical at the point of attack. But here, just working our zone combos here, what we call a rub combo. Center's just working through the hip, guard is working on controlling that A gap. And then Cody on the backside is working on his feet, climbing up to the linebacker. Here, incorporated the tight ends. But center just back blocking on any kind of zone scheme, working that play side combo. And then we're working just a 3-technique combo where the guard now is the post and the backside tackle is the driver of the block. More repetition. Here, working a jack combo between the tight end and the tackle, making sure that we get our feet in the ground, right, Cody? We're here. I don't mind if he does a timing step with his left foot, time step, get that second step vertical through this 5 technique. I don't mind that. Cody does a decent job there with it. I like to have his hand placement be a little bit lower knee bend. Our center does a decent job. So just working repetition over and over and over again with our zone combos. And then here we do a little bit of pin pull as well. Just working on our down blocks, getting everything incorporated, getting more reps at our drills. Tight end does a good job here of getting his feet in the ground. Left guard does a decent job getting his feet in the ground. One thing on that 4-man combos that I showed you previously when we were working this drill here, I will throw in, every once in a while, I'll throw in cross-face. A lot of teams, whenever we do any kind of pin pull, this 5 technique tries to fight over the top. So I make sure we really work on having our upfield hand really strong to keep them inside. And we got to make sure we don't get cross-faced on that block. We also do that with tackles as well, if we're doing any kind of inside the guard influence block as well. So you'll see here in this next clip, this tight end here gets cross-faced a little bit. Want to really work that strong left hand here in this block for him. This guy ends up falling back into the play. Just got to make sure he keeps his feet driving. Here, like I was talking about earlier with the tackle, getting squeezed in the hip by the DN. Got to really work to get physical through there, widen this B gap on the backside. Cody gets a little bit washed here. Definitely think he should be a little bit more physical, can lead into this a little bit more. Just so this guy can't play the dive. If he ends up handing it off, he ends up slowing him down just because of the way the tackle is playing that. Being physical through the DN squeezing his hip. Like to see our center be a little bit more aggressive here. Guard does a decent job comboing through it, punching the hip, does a decent job climbing up. Pods, tight end combos, guard center combos, gap schemes, everything like that. Just working our 2-man combos, working more footwork stuff here. Working that hand placement. We do this against our D-line. Our guys love this. Gets pretty intense, doesn't it, Cody?
Yes, sir.
So we really enjoy getting after it here, going on the goal line, trying to score with our defender. This is something that our guys usually take pretty good pride on. We do this during fall camp, working our zone combos. Here, our center needs to keep climbing on this, needs to really punch through his hip. So if he punched this D tackle's hip, he would control that block, he'd be able to throw him over a lot easier. So that's what I'm looking for, that's what we're trying to aim for when we're doing this block. Tight end tackle combos. Tight end does a decent job here at the end, regaining his base. Tackle does a good job playing with good pad level, keeping that board between his legs. So I'm overemphasizing every drill that we're doing. We're always overemphasizing, hey, keep the board between your legs. Every drill that we do has a progression from the zone boards to the 3-man combos to the 2-man combos to pods. Everything that we do is always repetition. I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again so the guys understand, hey, when they're in the game, what happened on that block? Oh, coach, you know, I didn't climb up to my back here. I got washed. I got the DN's hands on my hip. So I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again so we all speak the same language. Tight end needs to get his foot in the ground here faster. Gets caught hanging up in the air. Needs to get in the ground. Needs to get that short 6-inch step in. Good thing the tackle is so strong at this block here that he ends up controlling it. Tight ends end up regaining his feet, driving through it. Pretty good rep there. So I like to see here, guard does a nice job controlling him. I like to see the center climb a little bit sooner. I like to see the center climb a little bit sooner because you're going to work that vertical push on that linebacker. Here, they get split. I want to have our guys come hip to hip. That's another thing on every double team combo. I want to make sure they get hip to hip. Because if they're not getting hip to hip, then we're going to get split. The defender owns that gap. Here, they end up getting split. This is a freshman at right guard here. Or, no. That's cool. That's not Caleb, is it? I can't tell. Looks like it is. Freshman playing for us. Struggled with that whole concept of getting hip to hip. Got better as the year went on. We're in our double team combos. Strain drill. This is something that our guys like doing. This is something that put them under the chute, really work their combos. So I have two guys under the sled, under the chute. So yeah, a guy working, someone's the post, someone's the driver here. So driver, post. Then I have another guy, another offensive lineman standing behind him, leveraging him, so it makes it harder on the double team. So I got two guys, I got him holding the guy in there, so it makes them drive their feet. So really work on driving the physical block, make sure they're driving their feet, and getting the double team moving, getting them out of there, getting them run out of there. So here you can kind of see, so it's a two whistle drill, starting him. He's really trying to anchor down in there, trying not to let him move the first guy that's in the double team. Second whistle, he's going to escape out of there. They got to really work on running their hips and their feet. By moving this guy here, it makes them really, if they don't run their hips and their feet, they're going to fall over flat on their face. Got to make sure that they're running their hips and their feet, maintaining that block through, playing with leverage. Here you can kind of see it getting set up. The guys are getting in there, working the double team. One's going to be the post, one's going to be the driver on the double team. They get anchored in there. Good body position, good base. Driver feet. Another form of basically using the sled on the double team. Kind of gives us that leverage of it's not going to be easy to push this guy out of here. Gives us some extra weight, gets us training our legs to keep driving if we can't get any movement. Keep driving our legs. Hold them in there, and then it makes them run their feet at the end so they can move the double team even more. Here, on the goal line, example of when this is used the most is really working on driving this double team here. They really don't get much movement on it. This is where we need to, watching this, after this on Tuesday, we would go under the chute and we would drive this guy out of there probably for 10 minutes of practice. Really working on our leg drive. Our center does a bad job here of not driving his feet. Got to get movement on this double team. Create that gap inside. We end up scoring on this play, but this is pretty lackluster. This is where that strain drill really comes into place, especially on the goal line when they're playing really low, playing with really good leverage. Got to make sure we have good pad level and really work on driving our feet out of there, getting movement. Quarterback got voted the worst celebrator on the team. We gave him so much shit for bad celebrations throughout the year that eventually came to a point where like 4th or 5th game of the year that he just all of a sudden just whenever we scored, he tried to do the stupidest stuff on film just because we know we were asking him about it. So you can probably see it. I think you catch a little bit of it here at the end. But Nate Juliak is a senior for us. Had a really good year. You can see how he celebrates. he enjoyed being harassed the next day after film.
Good thing you get harassed about.
Yes, it sure is, isn't it, Cody? Offensively, we had a pretty good year. We averaged over 30 points a game. Offensive line-wise, we only gave up 6 sacks in 10 games. So, led the YAC conference this year. I know our guys are pretty proud of that, weren't you, Cody?
Oh, yeah.
So, take pride in that. But here, just working our double team combos again. Really working on driving our feet out of there. Here, I definitely think we can play a little bit more pad level here. Our left guard does a really nice job. He actually does too much of a job and gets a nice piece of our center here and throws him out of the way. Need to work on his aiming point a little bit, not punching his body. But definitely think you can play a little bit lower pad level, right, Cody? Get that guy moving out of there. Do a decent job here. This is the freshman in there again. Do a decent job staying on the block and driving them. I like to see them stay tighter together though. That's one thing on the string drill is really working that hip to hip, making sure that they don't get moved out of make sure that they don't get split. We do a lot of outside zone as well. So I'm sure you guys do a lot of this drill as well. But reach the reacher, reach drill, working against each other. Both guys are going against each other. One guy is not just a dummy. Both guys are doing the reach drill, really working the technique. So we're getting double the reps here at every station. On this, really working what, Cody?
First step, really.
First step, getting it in the ground. Making sure we're not losing ground on the step. Making sure we're gaining ground on that first step. Really working on throwing our far hand to the far number and then pulling them with our inside hand. So I'm going to throw this hand to the far number and then twist and really get our hips around. That's one thing in this drill that this kid does a really good job of is getting his hips around there at the end. Really making sure that I got control here. I'm pulling them. As I'm pulling them with my inside hand, I'm getting my hip around and I'm controlling that block and I set the edge on it. Here he is again, different rep. Really does a good job. It's hard when there's no shoulder pads on, but he does a really good job of really trying to throw that hip across and really try and control that block. Do it with the fullbacks as well, outside zone, but really working on straining, really working on throwing that hip through, working on gaining ground with that first step. Does a nice job sealing that guy off. Works on throwing that far hand to that far shoulder. Seals it off. One thing that I know our guys struggle with a little bit is when they're stepping, they end up crossing over, and if they get bad timing on it, and they have that crossover step, they get off balance. So one thing I try and have our guys do, especially during the drill, is throwing, shuffling around it instead of crossing over. Because in that crossover step, a lot of our guys have gotten caught where they get pushed into the chest, and then they lose balance on it, and then they end up falling back into the play. So here, they do it, they cross over a little bit. I don't mind it as long as they're quick about it. I don't want to have big crossover steps like this. If it's just a quick here, just so we can shuffle back through, that's one thing that I'm looking for on this drill. He does a really nice job setting the edge on that. And then Cody, right tackle, he doesn't get him reached. One of the things then, the next part of the drill, if you don't get him reached, because you're not always going to get him reached, is what? You got to drive him to the sideline. Get him out of there. Run him out of there. Got him. Don't feel like you can't hook him. Get him out of there. The next guy's going to set the edge on him. Here, tight end does a decent job. Like to see him maybe help the tackle out a little bit more on it. But he does a nice job. Somebody's going to end up sealing it off. So if you end up widening that guy out, the next guy, hopefully your buddy seals it off. The tailback's going to hit the next vertical seam that he has. Good job on his first step. Short in the ground, does a decent job. Next here on not crossing over too much, getting the steps back in the ground so we can play with leverage. Does a nice job shutting it off, creating that gap on the outside. outside zone this game. As you can see, nice job by both those guys sealing those guys off. Put a little bit of a wrinkle in our outside zone game as well. This is a nice play for us. Center does a nice job of reaching. Tackle does a nice job of reaching here. Really does a nice job of throwing his hand across and then drilling his hips around. That's what we're looking for out of the drill. Cut drill. You're going to see some pretty unathletic things in this drill. Not going to be the prettiest thing in the world. Working on having our guys run with the bag, working on chasing on angles. I like to see our guys, I always teach, running through the thigh boards, cutting through it, being aggressive, being explosive through it, and then rolling into them, making sure we get them down. This is pretty unathletic here. You guys understand the concept of the drill. Here, he turns a little bit too much. I want to stay as square as we can. I want us to show our eyes through the guy. So when we're running, one of the things that, especially when I was playing, is if I was running out in the alley on somebody, I was here, I was always looking at him. I'd show him my eyes, I'd flash him my eyes, because then if he sees my head is up, he thinks I'm going to stay up. I'd flash my eyes, and then I'd cut through him last second. Because if you train your eyes to stay up, it's going to teach your body to not show that you're going to be cutting right away. So here, on this rep, with this, not this rep. Here, number 79. He starts turning his body too soon. It's because he's not training his eyes to stare at the guy's eyeballs. Stare at the guy's white of his eyes. You got to stay up, keep the body up, and then throw it last second. Turn and roll into it. Like to have us rip through, being aggressive with the rip, and then roll into it. Pretty unathletic stuff there, but that's all we had. And then fit drill. So in a lot of our guys, if we're doing any kind of outside zone, we're fit here and we're running with the guy, and I'm going to teach them to, if they're losing them over the top, to not hold or not to let go. If you do want to cut them, you're here, you're losing them, throw last second. So this drill, we're in the fit position, we're already losing the block, and then all we're going to do is we're going to run a few steps, and then we're going to throw, and then we're going to roll into them. So I don't have any clips of that, didn't get any on film this year. But that's a good drill for a lot of our outside zone plays, and we're really working on our cuts second level. Okay, got to call Cody out here. We're doing a lot of this jet sweep stuff as well. If he's fast flow, we're going to cut him. Get our feet in the ground. This is an opportunity where Cody could have cut the second level. Right, Cody?
Yes, sir.
This is just one of the opportunities in the game that this is where we would see this happening. And then, I didn't get any of this on film, but this is a picture from my old days. Now we're getting into the pass concept stuff, some of the pass protection stuff. Any questions on any of the run game drills that I've gone through so far? You guys got any questions on anything? Open it up right now for you guys. Nothing? Coach, look to you.
A couple of things, you know, you do anything in the off season to work on your linemen as far as their hips and knee bend. So as you come in the season, they're not so high. And just two-part. Is there any change when you get down in goal line? Your tack points or how you're going to come off the ball in 3rd and 1? Or
We would narrow our splits up. Narrow our splits up, crowd the line of scrimmage a little bit more. Get them driving. And then off season, since I do the strength and conditioning stuff as well, we do a lot of hip flexibility stuff and a lot of overhead squats. We do a little bit of that. Range of motion type stuff, squatting. That has a lot to do with it. And then on their own, they have to make sure they're stretching. Getting all their stretches in, doing a lot of their own hip flexibility stuff. And then I have them live in their stance as well. Sit down in the stance, got to get comfortable in it, got to make sure that they're bending. Yep. Does that answer your question? You had a question back there?
Yeah, I'm just saying, we can't cut second level in high school.
Right.
What do you get after your lineman about? For us, help me out with how you did it maybe back in your day playing, or What should we tell our kids? Just be more athletic, get out there. It's like cows on ice, I've heard guys tell us when we got the big guys going out there.
When they're out in space cutting, you're saying? Or?
Yeah, well, we can't cut. So
Right.
that's how should we do some things to help our kids get better at blocks out in space?
I think that drill, right there, instead of having them cut, just making sure they're taking appropriate angles on their blocks. So we have, especially when we do our pin pull stuff,
Okay.
we have guys run around, and we have guys move in the second level, and we have to basically do a mirror dodge out in space.
Okay.
So we basically, one of those things is just really working when they're coming around, really working coming to balance here, because I know I've seen a lot of guys, especially on their highlight tapes, is when they're running around out in space, they just take off and run like this. They don't have a base at all, so they can't change direction as well. So one of the things that I make sure our guys focus on is when they're out in space, they come to balance and they take short, choppy steps in space, but they keep gradually moving forward.
Do you think that they forget that the defense is coming at them, that they don't have to go get them?
I think they think they're a little bit more athletic than the defensive backs are, but that's
They think they have footballs in their hands, half of them, yeah.
So I definitely think that just training it over and over again in space blocks. I do a lot of that with our tight ends and fullbacks as well. But one of the things that I overemphasize is making sure that they have a base when they come to balance. And once we get to that position, we do we just basically do a mirror dodge in space and have them mirror them up and try and lock on as best we can. One of the things that, a different drill that I don't have on here, that we do, that I do with the tight ends, that has a little bit to do with gaining control and getting the base at the point of attack, is I set up bags here. So I took this from Tim Polisek when I worked with him at NIU. Is with the fullbacks, you start them on this side, and you have them hop over the bags like this, and you have them mirror somebody, and then as soon as you blow the whistle, you have to gain your balance here at the edge of the bag, and you have to keep that base and then strike the defender that's on the other side of the bag here. So that's one of the things that I do to make sure our tight ends, when they're out in the second level, I don't do that with the O-line. I might do that now, but one of the things that we do is to make sure that we have the creative base, is have them go over these bags, and then they don't know when I'm going to blow the whistle. And then when I blow the whistle, they have to stop on that bag and then drive through them, just like if we were on the zone boards. Make sure they're keeping the base. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, good.
Any other questions? So part of the way that our individual is set up in practice is we have the beginning part of practice is all run. Then we get into our inside zone, inside run stuff. And then we go into 7-on-7. And then when the skill guys, I guess the small skill guys, because linemen want to be skill guys too, right? When they do that, we go down and do one-on-ones or we do pass game stuff. So pass protection stuff. So getting into a little bit of that. The way I start every off season, so spring ball, I'll have our guys line up in this. Fall camp, I'll have our guys line up in a grid. So center, guard, tackle. And all we're working on is our stance and getting in and out of our stance. Working on getting our head and our shoulders out. I'm down in my stance. I say set hit, 1, 2. Working on popping out of our stance, making sure our chest is flat, our back is up, and our hands are tight, elbows are tight. So we'll do this at least 10 minutes at the beginning of every season for every day. So I don't have any film on that, but that's a nice drill of getting a lot of reps, making sure, walking around, making sure guys are comfortable in their stance, especially for incoming freshmen. This is something that I'll do, and I'll make them live in their stance, make sure that they're in there. They learn how to get their head and their shoulders out. So here, head and shoulders out, pretend like you got a whistle hanging off your chest. You don't want it out in front of you here because then the defender can grab the back of your shoulder and pull you off. Got to make sure your head and shoulders are out. Punch and extend. Keep your head and your shoulders out when you're punching as well. So that's what this drill here. Down the line punches. So you can work it 2 ways. So I have a post foot and I have a kick foot. This here, he's working his kick foot, working down the line here, making sure that his stagger that he has in his stance is always staying the same. A lot of our guys, especially freshmen, when they go down the line, they end up switching their feet. We don't want that. We want to make sure that they stay here, stay in their stagger, keep that front post foot up. So if there's any redirect inside, they can shut it off and be physical with that post foot, right? So this is one of the drills that you can work kick foot down the line here, head and shoulders out, or you can work post foot here, working on being physical, really pounding that foot into the ground. So here, Cody, I think he's a little soft punching these bags. I think, Cody, you would agree with me on this.
Yeah, I just don't want to hurt the other guys.
Right? So here, really working on really being physical, thumbs up on our point of attack, elbows tight, squeezing tennis balls between our elbows. You don't want to be out here, you don't have power out here. For me, being the strength coach as well, we do a lot of stuff that's right through this range. This is where you have most of your power. As soon as your elbows start coming out here, you don't have as much strength out here. Keeping our elbows tight, exploding through here, thumbs up, so we don't break any of our fingers, even though it's going to happen. Here, working on pad level as well, keeping a good knee bend, punching, getting our head and shoulders out. This kid right here, one thing that he struggles with, and he knows it, is, see if I can pause it. See his hands? This is a good drill. He always exposes his chest. Even when we do one-on-ones against the D-line, he always exposes his chest. No matter what he's doing, he always starts here and then he brings him up. This drill is for him especially, having here, snapping his hands right to his chest so he can punch right away. This is not very good by him, keeping his hands down. Got to make sure his hands are up. And then when he's loading up, you can kind of see, here, let me see if I can get this in slow-mo. Then he drops him, he's dropping him to come here, he drops him to come here. Got to keep him training to keep his hands here because it's a shorter distance. What time is it, Edward?
10-2.
10-2, okay. I'll speed through this here real quick. So just some other stuff, just some drill work, carry over into the plays. I want to get into the screen game here real quick for you guys. Med ball punches, this is something that we do, taking on an angle here, timing up our punch. Making sure that when the defender gets in our uncomfort zone, punch, extend, get our head and our shoulders out. So this is a good drill, because if they don't, especially when we don't have pads on our helmets during spring ball, this is really good because if they miss, they get hit in the face. So they don't want that, so make sure that they keep their hands tight. Just working that angle here, punch. Different size med balls and work on different aiming points. All right, let's go into the screen game here real quick. Z drill, just working on here, kick, post, working on getting a lot of reps in there. So here, working two defenders, kicking, posting. This is something we do pretty much every week. Working on our hand plays and working on pounding the ground, working that good angle, keeping our shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. It's not letting me scroll down. Okay, so screen. So we do a lot of full slide protection stuff where everybody's sliding, everybody's got their outside gap. So tackle's responsible for this outside gap, guard's responsible for his B gap, center's responsible for his A gap, backside guard responsible for his A gap. And then tackle, he's stepping down just like he was doing on a quick game protection. He's stepping down, 1,002, and then climbing up to this linebacker. Tailback is punching the D end here, then he's releasing back inside. So it looks very similar to when we have a pass game out here as well. If we have any of our like bubble concepts or any of that quick game hitches and all that stuff, we have a lot of different stuff out here. And we also have, this is something that we looked into as well. If the corner's playing off, we're just going to have him run a 5-yard speed out. We're just going to take it. If he's playing 8 yards off, 5-yard speed out, throw it. So that's his first read, yep.
About 2 minutes.
Okay. So he's going to throw it. If he's playing off, take the quick 5 yards. Who cares about the screen? If the screen goes for 100, I mean, we'll take the 5 yards every time if they're giving it to us. So that's something that we looked into as well. And then, let's see here. So this is our best screen of the year. We ran this probably at least once a game, if not twice. But here you can see them all stepping down. Cody does a good job, or no, that's Greg O'Cray. He does a good job punching, throwing that guy, does a nice job then climbing up to the linebacker and making sure he's got that good base. So the nice thing about it marries up right with our protection that we have. So that's one of the things that we picked up this year, that that's a nice screen game just because everything looks the same. Every pass concept that we have, every protection that we have is always usually married up unless it's a drop back with one of our run games. So here also, so instead of looking to the field, instead of looking to the boundary here, he's pressed up. We ended up throwing a bubble off of it as well. So to get this guy out of here, get the safety out of there, because we do a lot of quick game bubble stuff as well. Those guys both run out of there, that linebacker runs out of there. It makes it easier for this tackle to climb on up. And if they don't run out there, we throw the bubble. So we have 3 options on this play if we need it. Let's go back to this here real quick. Gotta keep going, right, Cody? Find a way out of there. Then we also incorporated a tight end into it as well. Have the tight end and the tackle both released, so we can do it out of multiple formations. So, any questions on any of that stuff? I know I rushed through that a little bit, but my information is down here at the bottom. Coach Jasinski, appreciate you having me in. Thanks for all you guys listening to me talk. We are also looking to do, if you guys want to go up and do any kind of clinics, just let us know. We're more than welcome to have you guys come up. We run a 4-2-5 defense, and we run a no-huddle spread type offense. We're more than welcome to have you guys come up whenever you guys feel like it. So, and then satellite camps as well. If you guys want to do any satellite camps, have us come down to satellite camps this summer, please contact us, and we'll be more than welcome to do that as well. And then we have a Big Dog Camp July 14th. So, any questions or anything else right now?